Hi, I'm Caitlin, and this is Book Chats, and I am doing my April wrap-up. I only read 6 books in April, one of which was a reread, so hopefully I'll get through this pretty quickly. The first 3 books I'm going to talk about are actually all books that I listened to on audio during the month. First book that I finished was If You Find Me. It was a debut a couple years ago and it had been on my list, and I managed to listen to it on audio. I wasn't a huge fan of this book. I think it's hard for me to understand because I looked up some other reviews, and some like really big name reviewers on Goodreads who usually don't pull their punches really enjoyed it, but it just didn't connect to me in the same way it connected to them. The second audiobook I listened to I really enjoyed. It's my second A.S. King book, but the first one I really liked. It was Gloria O'Brien's History of the Future. It's basically this story, this super weird story of this girl who is dealing with she's dealing with life things that are interesting. Her mom committed suicide when she was in kindergarten, and so she's dealing with kind of the repercussions of that and the way that she and her father have or haven't kind of adapted and adjusted and gotten over it. And also kind of growing apart of her best friend who happens to live on a hippie commune next door. But also she's dealing with the fact that she and her best friend are seeing visions of a future, and that future is pretty bleak for women. Interesting thing that I read in some reviews is that a lot of people don't believe the visions, and that's why they don't necessarily enjoy the book. And I definitely thought that the first kind of inciting incident vision was just not something that would happen. I just don't think that the thing that it would require would happen on such a large scale and so overtly rather than subconsciously. It would have to be a really conscious decision. But some of the other things I think are not necessarily that far from the truth, and I enjoyed the story around them even apart from them, and so I enjoyed this regardless, but I really liked it. And then the third audiobook I finished in the month was called The Black Count, Glory, Revolution, Betrayal, and the Real Count of Monte Cristo. That was actually a nonfiction book about Alexandre Dumas' father, who was the son of a Frenchman and a slave on one of France's sugar colonies. So this is not something I knew before this book was released at all about Alexandre Dumas. His father was half black, I guess. And I also didn't know that he was this huge commander in the army right before the French Revolution, during the French Revolution, and then a little bit he had some interface with Napoleon. This book was really interesting. It was a really interesting look at a part of kind of French history that I was not very familiar with, and also it dealt with kind of race relations in France and how the revolution changed them, and then how they were maybe changed again by Bonaparte. And I thought that was really interesting. Definitely worth checking out, I think, if that sounds interesting to you. One thing is it did drag a little for me in the middle because it's not something that I'm super interested in. I at some points was but I did enjoy it overall, and I definitely recommend it. So then finally, in gearing up for the best series endings, Top 5 Wednesday, I reread Serafina because I do intend to read Shadowscale, and I felt like I needed to reread it. So I have the old school cover because a friend of mine traded me. I bought the purple cover, and I was like, I don't like it. I like the red one better. And she was like, I like the purple one better. Let's trade. So I love her. But yeah, I really enjoy this book. I describe it as a kind of alternate medieval world in which there are dragons, and dragons can take human form, but when they do, they act like Vulcans. There's so much, if you like dragons or if you love music, you should definitely consider reading this. I have not read the sequel yet. It's a duet, and I haven't finished the series, but rereading Serafina in preparation to read Shadowscale, I remembered how much I love this book. So much. Then I decided to pick up United We Spy because it's the final book in the Gallagher Girls series, and I thought that it might make it onto my Top 5 Wednesday, and it did. So I really did enjoy it. I enjoyed the ending to the series. I like this series a lot. I've talked about it a couple times in Top 5 Wednesdays. It starts out very light and fluffy, and it ends much more seriously. The final book that I finished is actually one that I read 3/4 of when I was in DC. I kid you not, was so trying to finish this book while I was still in DC that the day that I was set to fly out, I had to walk to the library to return it. But I got back, and just a couple days ago I was like, oh, I should get that from the library here and finish it. So I picked it up. I read the last 100 pages. It is Snow Like Ashes by Sarah Rosh. I definitely enjoyed this book. It's a little weird in the beginning because it kind of feels uneven, and I was very confused, and I didn't really know whether I liked it. And then there's something that happens, and it basically, the setting kind of changes, and the main character realizes some things about herself and her place in the world, and it suddenly gets a lot better, and it ends very strongly. And it ends in a way that, like, technically I would, like, if it hadn't done well and they had, like, somehow canceled the sequels, it would have been okay, but it's definitely gonna have sequels. I'm very excited about them. Those are the 6 books that I read in the month of April. Unfortunately, none of them were debuts from this year, and none of them counted for my Pop Sugar Challenge, unless I go back and somehow figure a way to count them, but I didn't. So I'm still at 1 of 12 for the debut author challenge, which puts me 3 books behind, and I'm at 18 of 50 for the Pop Sugar Challenge, which is actually 2 books ahead according to Goodreads. For my Goodreads challenge, so they don't count books that you reread if the first time you read them is, like, in their database. They only let you offer one date that you've read things. Serafina doesn't count, so they count 5 of the books that I read this month. I was at 36 previously, so now I'm at 41 books out of 132 for the Goodreads challenge that I set for myself, which puts me 2 books behind, but I'm not really worried about it because April was a pretty busy month and I just didn't read as much, and I definitely feel like I'm reading more now. Probably my favorite book of the month. Rereading Serafina was my favorite, but I did really enjoy Gloria Bryan's History of the Future. What about you? How was your April as far as reading and as far as other things go? And did you have a favorite book of the month? Let me know.